You know, true crime, it's always got those grabby headlines, right? But this deep dive you guys sent in, this one's different. We're going deep on the Justin Johnson trial, one of the guys accused of killing rapper Young Dolph. And honestly, judging by these articles, it's less about who done it and more like a peek behind the curtain of the music industry.
Yeah.
Dark side and all.
Yeah, it's like what grabs me is how this goes way beyond just, one violent act. You've got the whole Memphis rap scene, the power plays, even rumors of a hit. Like, was this orchestrated by rivals? Wild stuff.
Seriously. One article even suggests Dolph refusing to sign with Yo Gotti's label, CMG, that might have been motive. CMG, that's Collective Music Group, they're huge in Memphis. And the word on the street was bad blood already brewing between them and Dolph.
Classic power struggle, for sure. But what got me was that eyewitness, Cornelius Smith, the one saying he was in on the shooting.
Oh man, his testimony. Smith saying he got promised 100 grand, a whole contract, to help take Dolph out. And the mastermind, supposedly Yo Gotti's own brother, Big Jook. Chillin' stuff.
And get this, he's claiming he only got a tiny bit of the cash before getting busted. Adds a whole other layer to it, like the desperation. Makes you wonder what anyone would do in that spot. But gotta remember, that's just one side.
Exactly. That's where the lawyers come in, right? Johnson's lawyer saying Smith's just trying to get a lighter sentence. Plea deal, info for less time, happens all the time. But makes you question everything, especially since Big Jick was killed earlier this year. Can't exactly defend himself now.
So many questions about what Smith's saying, right?
Right.
But the article mentioned they found his fingerprints, and Johnson's on that getaway car. White Mercedes. Even found Smith's phone in there. That's tough to beat in court, even for people who don't follow this stuff. Fingerprints, phone records, direct link to the crime scene.
Oh, true. I totally skimmed over that phone part. But then Johnson's lawyer, he shot back saying none of Johnson's prints were on the car. It's like this constant back and forth.
And here's another layer we can't forget. Young Dolph. He wasn't exactly new to this. He'd survived 2 other shootings. One of them, over 100 bullets at his SUV. That's not like normal life,
Yeah.
That's serious danger all the time.
Makes you think, what was that pressure like? The fear. Dolph even had that song 100 Shots after that happened. Talk about art imitating life. He was rapping about the danger he actually lived with.
See, and that's what gets me. That song, it's not just a catchy title anymore. It's like foreshadowing. Just really highlights how much violence had become part of his career, tragically. And here's the thing, right? Even with Johnson Smith behind bars, it's not over. Hernandez Govan, he's the next piece of this puzzle, the supposed mastermind, remember?
Right. The guy allegedly calling the shots. But if he wasn't at the bakery, how did they even tie him to the crime? That's a huge leap for the prosecution, isn't it?
Exactly. And this is where it gets interesting. They're using all these little things, like Johnson and Smith ditching that Mercedes near Govan's place. Plus, Smith's claiming he met Govan after, got his phone back, and some of the payment.
Ah, so they're building this whole narrative, hoping these connections, maybe some phone records, will convince the jury that Govan was the brains behind it all.
Exactly. Because in a trial, it's not enough to just say, he pulled the trigger, right? They need the whole story, the motive, the link to the crime itself. And with Big Jerk gone, a lot's riding on whether the jury buys Smith's story.
High stakes for sure, like a chess match, everyone making their move. But there's this other side too. Young Dolph's life, what he meant. He was more than just a victim, right?
Absolutely. Young Dolph, he was a force, represented something different, that fierce independence, the way he gave back to Memphis, his community. And not just, like, surface level, he cared.
Yeah, those articles mentioned him doing those Thanksgiving turkey giveaways in his old neighborhood. And his music, obviously, it hit home for a lot of people. What was it about his style that made him stand out?
Realness. He rapped about his life, the grind, the wins, the losses, never forgetting his family, his city. That kind of honesty, it cuts through, Can't fake that. And that's why people still connect with it today.
That honesty, that connection to his roots, it's everywhere, even in these articles about the trial. Makes his death hit even harder, Like, what else could he have done if things were different?
Heavy thought, for sure. But there's something powerful there, too. See, young Dolph, he built his own label, Paper Route Empire. He wanted to support other artists, give them a shot, did it his way, no compromises.
That's huge, especially for young artists trying to make it. That world can be brutal. He showed them it's possible, success on your own terms, even if you got to carve your own path.
Exactly. Shows his character, right? Instead of giving in, he rose above. Created his own space, inspired others to do the same.
This whole deep dive, it's really making us think about ambition, integrity, The price of success.
It is. And as we get into these key players, those themes, keep them in mind. They're central to this whole story.
So we've covered the trial, the evidence, the whole courtroom battle. But before we wrap, we got to talk about young Dolph himself. Adolph Thornton Jr., right?
Yeah, born and raised in Memphis. His story's kind of like his music, all about resilience. He came from nothing, the kind of poverty that sticks with you.
You can hear it in his lyrics for sure. That rawness, those struggles, it's what people connected with.
No doubt. Dolph wasn't rapping about champagne and yachts. He talked about what he knew. The streets, the hustle, just surviving. There's this authenticity there. You can't fake it.
And even when he made it big, he never forgot where he came from. Those Thanksgiving giveaways, that wasn't for show. He wanted to give back to his community.
It was part of him,
Right.
not just words, but actions. He wanted to make a difference, lift people up. Says a lot about his character.
It really does. Integrity, that seemed important to him. And then on the other side of this whole thing, you've got Yo Gotti. He's been a big name in Memphis rap, even longer than Dolph.
Oh, yeah, Mario Mears, a.k.a. Yo Gotti. He blew up in the late 90s, his own style, those street stories. Then he started collective music groups, CMG. They're huge. Signed guys like Moneybagg Yo, 42 Doug.
So you got these two ambitious guys, both from Memphis, both making it big. It seems like their paths were bound to cross, right?
Absolutely. And you throw in that music industry competition, the egos, yeah, things could easily get heated.
Especially with rap, right? Bravado, keeping it real, it's all part of it. Things can escalate quickly. Diss tracks, feuds, and in this case, even violence.
And that's the tragedy here. These rivalries, the ambition, sometimes it feels like needing to own your turf, and then the consequences can be huge.
It's a lot to think about. And when we're talking consequences, we can't forget the guys accused of actually doing this, Johnson and Smith.
Right, Johnson, the rapper, straight drop. His lawyer saying he got caught up in it, chasing a record deal, money, maybe someone took advantage of him, big joke, maybe.
That whole too good to be true thing, except the stakes are way higher. Makes you wonder who's really to blame when someone's that desperate for a break.
Then there's Smith, the other alleged shooter. He's the one they're banking on to make their case. But his story, man, it's wild. High on drugs during the shooting, just there for the money, even saying his own lawyer was in Big Joke's pocket. Hard to tell what's real anymore.
Like trying to put a puzzle together, but the pieces keep changing. Who do you believe?
And that's what the jury's dealing with. They have to figure out if Smith's for real or just trying to save himself.
Tough job, no doubt. Really shows you how complicated all this is.
Yeah, and while we wait for the verdict to see how it all plays out, we've got to remember young Dolph, the person, the artist, what he stood for. His life was cut short, but his music, his generosity, that independent spirit, that's his legacy.
He made an impact, that's for sure. In Memphis, in music, with everyone he helps, that's what sticks with me. This deep dive was heavy, but in the end, it's his story that matters. So what do you think? What will you take away from all this?